So I just thought I'd just add a little bit of a twist to what we'll be talking about today, and steel and its contribution to space making. Now, steel is strong, steel is flexible, can be constructed really fast. I think all those have been well established. So I just thought today when we talk about space making as architects, I think every material we use in our buildings have a fairly profound influence on how the space is perceived. So for us as architects, our firm is 33 years old, so we like to experiment with a lot of materials. We like to experience with how materials can positively influence spaces. And we are also very environmentally conscious in terms of where our material comes from, how much of material are we using, what is the right choice of material in terms of the space experience, etc. So I'm just going to quickly flip through some of our projects similar to the ones you're seeing on your screen, and just walk you through how the choices that we have made in those specific projects have had a sort of a positive impact in how that space has been experienced. So this particular project I'm going to talk about is a factory office building in a place called Vallam, and Vallam is near Sri Perambudur. And it's an erstwhile brick kiln area. It's known for bricks. That whole area used to have a lot of brick kilns at one point in time, after the government came in and started banning burning of bricks and too much of pollution and things like that. But still, there are bricks being made, maybe officially, unofficially, I'm not sure. But the second we got there, we saw brick being the choice of material. We were also very keen on experimenting on this option of trying to go for a low concrete option in a building. Can we reduce the amount of concrete in this particular project and use brick, which, at least in our minds, came across as a material that is, you take it from the ground and you can put it back in the ground at any point in time. So the process started off by saying, brick is inherently a very heavy material. Most brick buildings sort of seem solid and planted on the ground. And we were very keen on looking at the opportunity of sort of lightening up the experience of brickwork. So in this particular project, we looked at the opportunity of using brickwork for floors, brick for walls, as well as brick for the roofs. So it's sort of an edifice in brick. So to sort of create that sense of lightness, we're also looking at nature, landscape, courtyards, and we want that accessibility for people to be able to just walk out of their office rooms and go into the garden and things like that. We needed the structure to also sort of feel light and transparent. So we ended up going for a composite steel framing with your primary, your columns, your secondary joist beams, and your primary beams, etc. And we went for a jack arch structure, sort of on a regularized grade. And this, what do you call it? Jack arch has been something that's been done forever. I think you've probably seen jack arch buildings from the British time or even predating that time. The standard detail for most jack arches would be to have the supporting beam as a downstand structure. But here we chose to go with an upstand beam structure as a composite beam. And by doing that, you start experiencing the space below extremely transparent, extremely open, with vistas and views that you normally would not expect. So the finished product, when you look at it, you see an object which is normally considered very heavy, brickwork, heavy-looking arches, sitting very lightly on top of a very light framework where there's a lot of glass, there's a lot of transparency. You're seeing courtyards, you're seeing landscape, you're getting a lot of natural light. This definitely would have been possible only if the structure below was light, thin, and compact. And I think that's probably one project that we can definitely be sure of, that steel has definitely contributed to how the space below the building, below the actual brickwork is positively being impacted. The next project we're talking about, I mean, this is more close to the heart for us. This is our studio in St. Thomas Mount here in Chennai. Obviously, it's a rare situation for us also. We are the clients, we're the architects, we're also footing the bill. So we have to be very careful about how to spend our money, but at the same time, we want to be what is the quality of space. We're going to be there for all our working hours and so on. So it is very important for us about how we sort of perceive space and how we could use materials to sort of influence the way we experience the space. So the building as such is just one large volume structure. I mean, we've used a lot of concrete in this particular project. It's a material that's very dear to us also. But there are some challenges that we had to overcome using steel, which I'll come to shortly. So it's a large volume space. It's basically staggered in section, which you can see in these sketches. Basically, it's a central courtyard kind of a space. There's a central courtyard space in the middle, and there are staggered floor slabs, sort of separating one space to another. So basically, what we did was we wanted this visual access. We wanted spaces to be connected visually from one end to another, the other end to another. So it was very important for us to ensure that we didn't have huge downstand beams spanning across. We didn't want downstand beams to come and cut away your sense of vision and openness. And I think that was something that dramatically has changed, because the steel sections used over here, which have been welded to the rebar of the concrete slab, are exactly the thickness of the slab. So there is absolutely no visual sort of blockage in terms of a person standing here talking to each other or people discussing across floor plates. So this is something that would have been possible apart from the aesthetic value of using steel. It's definitely been possible because of the member size being much smaller. So we also have steel in the form of stairs, again with the design aesthetic of having transparency. We want people to be able to walk across, but we don't want this thing to sort of come in your way and block your vision in terms of being a barrier. The railings are also transparent, they're open. I guess this level of slenderness, this level of fineness from an aesthetic point of view is something that you can get probably only from steel. These are some more images. We have a bamboo curtain facade here outside, again mounted on steel substructure. We have spirals. We have a straight flight staircase on one end. We have a spiral on one end. But none of these elements really cut away your light. They don't cut away your vision. It always gives you a sense of transparency, openness, daylight. A lot of the things that we keep talking about as architects, I think a lot of that is something we also wanted to do. I mean, as we can't keep talking about it if we don't do it and show it in our own office. So that is also something that is important to us. So this is the project that was nominated at the World Architecture Festival in 2017, and we were nominated second best office under the small office category. Slightly different project. We're talking about the Coimbatore Club. It's a 140-year-old club. Came for restoration in 2010. It was in horrible condition. As you can see in the pictures, lots of additions. As a club which is about 140 years old, you know, would keep on adding bits and pieces depending on whatever requirements they were. So when it came for this restoration, a lot of the additions which were not part of the original building were decided to be removed, and we were restoring the original building, which is 140 years old. But the challenges that we faced in this particular project was the fact that we had a working club. So we have guests, we have users, we have children, we have women, we have people walking into the club every day, and at the same time we are also constructing additions all around. So one off-site fabrication was very important, because if we didn't, we can't be sitting at site and working when the club is actually running. Second, we were quite keen that the additions had to come in such a way that they don't drastically influence the existing aesthetic of what was already there. We really didn't want to overshadow the heritage of that 140-year-old building. So whatever additions were to be made had to be made in such a way that they're sort of lighter, softer. They probably follow the same rhythm of, this is on the left, what you see is old, 140 years old, this is newer, but they follow the same rhythm in terms of maybe the dimensions, the spacing, but they're done in a much lighter kind of a representation. So again, the other thing is we are very close to the foundations of the existing buildings, so we had to be a little careful about how we were to address the excavation and foundations for the proposal. So steel again seemed like the right choice because it was lighter on the foundations, it was lighter to install, so it became the material of choice. So all the additions that were made were done using a steel structure where only the slabs were cast in concrete. Interestingly, over here there was a roof extension that had to be done. The existing building, 140-year-old building, ends here, and you have a pitched roof, timber and tile, that ends at this point. The addition, we were not able to extend the rafters because obviously the rafters were obviously terminated at that point. So we actually have introduced steel columns clad later in stone. That was a choice that was made later on. And these are actually cantilevered rafters that cantilever from this end, just about touching the building at that point. And then we extended all the timber rafters additionally. And then we have continued the roof over this newly added veranda space. So these are some decisions that obviously would have happened if not for using steel. Last one I'm going to talk about is, since a lot of them are PEV discussions were made in factory buildings we talked about. So this particular project we did for a Danish client was done in 2017. We've always been talking about why is there industrial spaces are really always considered as process, production. Those are all the words that normally come to your mind up front. It's all about efficiency. It's all about how many products can you make in so many hours and so on. So this particular project, we were Mahindra World City. We were right next to Novastar green belt area. So we spoke about why is it that we can't really respond to that landscape, to that space, and sort of make this industrial shed, fairly small shed, about 40,000 square feet, sort of respond to that space so that the people who work inside this factory can really start enjoying the environment, start enjoying that space. So that's where we started off. So the second part of it was, rather than have industrial building in front, then you will have your office building either on the outside or as a separate building on the outside, and you'll have your powerhouse, you'll have your toilets, and you'll have all the other ancillary buildings all around. We said, what if we grab all of that and if we stick it into the building footprint and sort of work in such a way that you have sort of streets and courts and trees and all of that inside. So you're sort of entering this large envelope. And once you get into this large envelope, it is sky-lit, it's all of what you would expect from a nice environment. But you've got multiple buildings inside it. You've got building 1, building 2, building 3, and so on. But the whole thing sort of is wrapped under one envelope. So that was one of the explorations that we went through, where we have glazed walls on the south side, looking at the green space beyond. The structure and all is painted bright red. We have trees growing inside where people can sit around and come out of the office, and you don't really have to sort of have these gullies. You can actually have people mill around in these areas. We have a lot of natural light. Those are some of the buildings that sit within the complete envelope. So it's a PEB frame, and the inner building was also constructed or installed by the PEB vendor. You can't see it in this photograph, but even the production area is glazed that far in. And what you see is probably a few kilometers worth of green. So it's all trees and very pretty view. So you have this kind of, again, we're talking about space and we're talking about experience. You get this view of sort of standing up at a higher level, looking down at production space. From production space, you get to look out at greenery. I mean, this is really what, as architects, what we are always searching for is how is it that we're going to redefine space. I mean, material is one aspect to it, and what the material can do is one aspect to it. But the other aspect of it is how is it that we're going to make environments a little bit more engaging for the people who are using those spaces, make it more exciting for the people who are going to use it. So I think that is where steel really excites us, and I think that opportunities are what we're also excited.